Casey, I'll start with you on Seattle. You live in Seattle, obviously. You played for the club as well. What will the reaction be in Seattle to this performance from the Sounders? At the end of the day, 0 for 3, but I think 3 pretty competitive games against good competition.
Yeah, I think that's what they were really looking for. When they saw that draw, they knew it was going to be a Herculean task to get themselves out of that group. And some of it you were going to have to wait and see how the big boys kind of approached it. But at the same time, I think the Sounders just wanted to represent. They didn't want to go in and just get rolled over. And I'll be honest with you, in that first game against Botafogo, they should have gotten something out of that match. They looked a little nervous in the first half, went down 2-0, but then had opportunity after opportunity to get the equalizer after they got the goal. So, yeah, that was probably the most frustrating because I think that was the best opportunity. You know, Atletico, clearly they didn't want to play in Atletico Madrid that just got spanked by PSG 4-0. So there was maybe a different level of motivation for Atletico Madrid in that match, but got a goal, pushed them. I think the way that we kind of looked at you talked about the Inter Miami Palmeiras match is nobody was just packing it in. Nobody was just kind of letting the game go through. You know, the Sounders didn't go out there at home in front of the home crowd at Lumen Field and just say, you know what, we're going to get 11 guys behind the ball and just, try to survive. No, they weren't, cavalier about it, but they tried to attack some very, very good teams, and I think they represented very well for MLS against some very tough opposition.
What do you think about Seattle? You wouldn't call it a success even with your Sounders ways. Would you be as harsh as to call it a failure?
No. And it's difficult for Seattle, who's 3 years removed from the actual team that qualified them into this tournament, the team that won the CONCACAF, Champions Cup or Champions League in that moment. All those players, majority of those players are gone, those big-time players. And the players that are still there, Stefan Fry is now 3 years older, even though still a very good goalkeeper, in the group of death. So it's difficult. I thought they showed very well. But I agree with Case. The first game was where they could have definitely got something out of it. Botafogo was begging for the final whistle. Another 2 minutes, that game would have been tied. And another minute, that game probably would have been a 3-2 game for the Sounders. Other than that, I think it was as expected. I feel bad for the MLS teams.
Why?
Well, LAFC, it's circumstantial, but they didn't have one home game. They're the only Major League Soccer team without a home game.
Right.
They were forced to play away.
All the other teams in the Club World Cup would say, we don't have home games.
Well, yeah, but they're not Major League Soccer teams with salary cap. So because Grupo Pachuca, León, was kicked out of the Club World Cup, they had to qualify for this tournament via playoff with Club America. They won that.
They got to qualify.
And they got to qualify, and they go play in Atlanta. If you saw that first game against Chelsea, nobody was at that game. If this game would have been at the bank in California,
helps LAFC.
I don't know about that. If you know what it's like to play at the bank with LAFC, if they have that home field advantage against Chelsea, the way they played against Chelsea in that game, it could have been a different story. I seriously think that. So
I'll be honest with you, I don't think where Chelsea and LAFC play matters all that much. I think 99 out of 100 times Chelsea's going to beat LAFC no matter where they play.
Well, that could have been that one.
Could have been.
99. Because the game in Atlanta with no fans, LAFC had their chances to put Chelsea away. Now imagine with home support. So I feel bad. I think it's circumstantial for these teams. But that said, it's their own doing. Nobody asked Major League Soccer or these teams to have a salary cap. Nobody asked them to not be able to reinforce themselves in the way that other teams probably could have during that 10-day window. So it's their own doing. But feel bad for them.
Did MLS improve its stock at all, in your mind? Kind of the outsider's perspective, having seen them now play against elite competition in a real competitive tournament?
I was talking to somebody who told me, like, sort of in Europe, which MLS players get the most attention, and they have metrics on this. Obviously, number one, no prizes for guessing, is Lionel Messi. Number two, Luis Suarez. Number three, Kevin Sullivan. Huh. So you're talking about two guys who played for Inter Miami and were old, and a guy who I think is hardly ever plays, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's the reality. This decision to put, it feels from the outside, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, you know more, all the eggs have gone into the Inter Miami basket.
Yeah.
This is all that anybody thinks about. This is all anybody talks about. And so I don't know how much it helps. I mean, LAFC is 2 World Cup winners, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not part of the conversation. It could have been a bunch of random no-names in the perception, in the way it's marketed. And again, maybe MLS as a league didn't feel as engaged because obviously it's not an MLS competition. Maybe they felt we're already doing our part, letting you take our teams or whatever. Yeah, I don't think this has helped. I mean, if I were to ask you who the top 2 or 3 teams in MLS are right now, I mean, notwithstanding the fact that Inter Miami are 6, it wouldn't be LAFC or Seattle, correct?
Yeah. No, I think the important point though is that none of these teams got humiliated. Like we might sit here and say like MLS didn't prove that it's an amazing top 10 league in the world or anything, but a lot of the talk before this tournament was MLS might get humiliated in this tournament.
I really felt
I don't think that's happened.
No.
I don't think there's one game you can point to and say an MLS team was humiliated.
Other than Auckland City, who are literally amateurs,
Yeah.
nobody in this. I mean,
Atletico got humiliated.
Yeah, Atletico, yeah.
You're right.
European powerhouse Atletico
You're right.
got humiliated. The reality is we need to wrap our heads around, especially those of us who live in Europe and whatever.
Say
the
it. Gap's not that big.
The
Say
gap,
it.
no, but the gap is shrinking. These teams that maybe might not be familiar from Africa, from Asia,
Well-
they come in here and they're used to dominating and they have that mentality. and they
There's
don't play
also a
with fear.
leveling of the field here. The ultimate equalizer, if you will, where it's a neutral site for a lot of these teams. The climate which these European teams are not used to playing in. The time. So there's a leveling of the field, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it because there's a sense that yes, if you play these games in Europe, if you play these games in
The climate thing is a little bit. I hear it's a little
I
bit.
just saw.
Let's say that 'cause it's later in the show.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I got things to say about the climate later.
Real quick, we do have another round of 16 game that we now know, a matchup in the Club World Cup. Of course, the Inter Miami PSG. The other one, Palmeiras Botafogo, an all Brazilian affair here. Who you got?
No love lost between these 2 teams and these 2 owners. I got to go Palmeiras.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Even what you saw tonight against Inter Miami?
I just think there's more quality top to bottom, and I think they're a better coach team. And Botafogo's shown that we can defend and grind it out, but Palmeiras can kick it up. Palmeiras came from 2 goals down.
Yeah. They're just deeper. I don't know if they're a better coach. I like Paiva. I think Paiva's a good coach. This is not the Botafogo team that won Libertadores. A lot of those players are long gone. Thiago Almada is not there. He was a massive star for him. He's now Lyon. Palmeiras has legit $40 million transfer players still sitting there waiting to leave. They've got major talent on that team.
But in this tournament, have they had like a signature result yet?
No,
Well, but this is probably it.
this is it.
Yeah.
Right, a 2-2 against Inter Miami.
Coming back.
Botafogo beat PSG. That's a signature result, no?
Yes, but they're away. They had 23% possession in that where they hung on. And John Textor, their owner, came out and said, we played like an English team. We defended. We took pride in it. Like, when a Brazilian owner, and he's not Brazilian, I understand he's American, but when a Brazilian team says we played like an English team, that tells you everything you need to know.
English teams notoriously defensive. Is this what?
Yes.
Honestly, I cannot wrap my head around that man. Sorry.
That is definitely a segment for another show.